Today's video is called Your Heart Knows God Exists Even If Your Mind Denies It. Interesting.
That doesn't sound interesting at all. That sounds tedious as hell. Yet another Christian here to tell me that no, really, you really actually believe my religious ideas. You're just denying it. You know, if they want to tell each other this 50,000 times in church as a pathetic cope about the fact that people who disagree with them exist, that's fine. I'm sure it has a wondrous ego-soothing effect. Have at it. But why is this a thing that's brought up to atheists? It's very possible that most of you idiots don't know how ridiculous this is when you bring it up to each other. So maybe you find it super effective when you repeat it back and forth between yourselves. But we do know how ridiculous it is. And so to us, it's anything but impressive. Sometimes it's comical, mostly it's just sad. This is not something you should be telling to us directly. Keep it in the church. Bringing it up outside that context is so ineffective. And nothing annoys me more than watching someone engage in a terrible self-defeating strategy repeatedly. As an analogy, imagine you're going to fight in a battle. You're all geared up for a huge fight. It's going to be an epic confrontation that'll go down in the history books. And then you get there, and your opponent isn't there because their entire army got lost. And then they show up and line up, but they don't know where you are, so they're all facing the wrong way. And they forgot their weapons back at camp, so they're all unarmed. And they forgot to go to the bathroom before they left, so they all start pissing their pants. And then you say, okay, guys, you're clearly not prepared. This is insulting. Let's all just go home. You can prepare better. We'll come back here and do this again tomorrow. And then the next day, the same thing happens again. Maybe it was funny the first time, but like the 50th or 60th day in a row of this, it's starting to get a little old. At a certain point, you might even be so annoyed that you'll start sending people over there to ask them if they want some proper training. Okay, I want you to improve your techniques, even if I disagree with you, because your absolute buffoonery is so irritating to watch. Anyway, let's watch it.
Now, before you start thinking, wait a minute, a speech about God on a Friday, 2025? Who's even talking about this stuff still nowadays?
That's not a thought I'm going to have. I'm aware that Christians exist and that the topic is relevant, and I'm aware that other people also talk about the topic, myself included. But, you know, weirdly I have seen this sentiment before, leveled at me. Oh, that topic's over. Nobody talks about that anymore. That's in the past. Now we're all talking about insert random political garbage here. As if somehow there's only ever one active topic in the world, and we all just have to follow the trend to whatever the new topic is any given week. You know, religion might have been a relevant topic for all of human history, but as of last week, it no longer is, okay? The way some people act and talk makes them seem incapable of independent thought and self-direction. So I guess, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give you that one, video guy. Some people might actually say something like that.
Well, relax. I'm not here to throw a bunch of religious jargon at you or try and guilt trip you into attending church this Sunday.
You say that as if that would be any more obnoxious than what you're actually gonna do. You already told me the title of the video.
But let's talk about something for a minute.
Exactly one. No more.
Have you ever had one of those moments when you're staring at a sunset or hearing a beautiful song, or you're just watching someone do something selfless, and you get this weird, unexplainable feeling in your chest? It's like something deep inside that says, this is not random. This is too beautiful to be by accident. This is something divine.
No, I wasn't raised in your religion. I don't have your religious ideas. I never have. This kind of thinking is entirely alien to me. Now, if you hadn't tacked on "this is something divine" at the end, and you had kept it at "this is not random and this is not an accident," then of course, the beautiful song is not random and is not an accident. The selfless act as well is presumably not random and not an accident. These are humans doing things. I'm aware that these are not accidental things. The sunset as well, aside from the very fine-grained details of it, but the general fact of how a sunset appears from Earth also is not random. It's essentially an inevitable product of the physical reality that we occupy, right? When the sunlight comes through the atmosphere at a low angle like that, that's what's going to happen to the visible light. The broad strokes of this process are repeatable. At the lowest quantum level, there might be some randomness, but we're not talking about that level. We're talking about the overall macro-scale phenomenon, and that's not random. Nor is it accidental, unless you mean it in the significantly less common sense of non-essential, which I don't think you do, because you didn't call it accidental, you said by accident, which implies a mistake, which if there's no person involved makes zero sense. It's also not unexpected. It's not a chance occurrence. There's no sense in which the word accident makes any sense when applied to this. And then again, with regard to this word accident, you said that the reason that it can't be by accident is because it's too beautiful, as if your perception of something as being pretty has some bearing on its cause, whether its cause was planned or expected or chance or not, or whether this thing was the product of a mistake, which is a non sequitur. There's no link between those ideas. You've just said two things in sequence and then expected me to take them as causally connected. And then, of course, additionally, something not being by accident does not necessarily imply that it's something divine, and something being divine doesn't necessarily imply that it's not by accident. It could be God's mistake. So we're less than a minute in, and already you're speaking total gibberish. You're saying a bunch of words that sound nice to you when you jam them all together, but they actually make very little sense together.
And maybe your mind says, oh, don't be silly, that's just chemistry, hormones, the Earth's atmosphere, or whatever. Science, explanation that you've heard recently.
Well, again, I don't say anything to myself about this because I don't have this idea you're talking about in the first place. But yeah, perhaps if I find myself curious about why humans find things nice, I'll turn to a scientific explanation for how humans work. And if I find myself curious about why there's a sunset and why it looks the way it does, yeah, maybe I'll turn to scientific explanations for that too. Why does the sky turn pink? Gee, I wonder if science has anything valuable to say on this topic.
But I'm here to tell you that your heart knows God exists, even when your mind tries to deny it.
Yes, I know, you already introduced the topic at the start. That was 1 minute ago. Believe it or not, I remember things from 1 minute ago. How does that happen? I don't know. My dumb ass would probably think that's a science-y question. Ugh.
Your mind's got all its theories and explanations, but your heart's been in on the secret from the start.
It's kind of a fascinating idea these people have, that there's some kind of hidden part of your mind, some dusty, cobwebby corner of your subconscious that possesses knowledge of which you're unaware. It's especially weird to me because I would consider awareness to be foundational to the concept of knowledge. Like if you're presented with a question and you consider it and you don't come up with this particular answer, in what way can you possibly be said to know that answer? Now, of course, that's me speaking for myself. I don't come up with his proposed answer. I have no awareness of this answer being the true one. My heart tells me nothing of the sort. Maybe someone else's does, but his proposal seems to be intended to be universal, that everyone does come up with this answer, that everyone has awareness of its truth, which is false. In my case, I know for a fact that it's false, and therefore I know he doesn't know what he's talking about. If his idea were true, then maybe there would be some sort of merit to this, but considering that he's proposed a way to test it which should apply to everyone, and the test has failed, in my case, my entire life, and therefore that my personal experience falsifies his hypothesis at least to my satisfaction. Of course, it's different for everyone else who would have to take me at my word, but nevertheless, all this being the case, I know for a fact, based on his standards, that his claim has no merit, and therefore that he's a clown, who's just making things up or parroting things other people made up in some bizarre self-soothing ritual. He appears to possess no special insight into the general human condition or the minds of others, but believes he has access to the deepest of truths about that, and so to me comes off as so deeply unserious that again, it's like watching the opposing army piss themselves.
It's like that one friend who always knows the truth when the rest of the group are debating it.
Is that a thing? Is that some common thing in friend groups? You're using it as an example to compare the heart thing to, I would assume because you find it to be more of a common, relatable experience. But I'm not sure this is some broadly typical characteristic of friend groups. Am I wrong about this? Maybe I just have weird friends.
So let's dive into what your heart already knows.
Yes, please enlighten me with your grand insights into my interior mental state. I find this deeply interesting and valuable.
Something that your mind is sort of trying to catch up with. Point number 1, the search for meaning. All right, so let's start with the big one. Why are we here? Huge question, right?
Whether that question is huge and deep, or incredibly shallow and small, interesting or incredibly dull, useful or useless, depends largely, I think, on what you mean by the word why. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to readily agree on which meaning of why we should be going with for this question to be interesting or meaningful.
So what's the point of this whole life thing?
Yeah, we're not going to agree.
If you've ever been in deep thought at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, asking those questions. Congratulations, you're human.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've laid in bed asking myself, what's the point of what I'm doing? What does it bring me? What will be its impact on the people around me? What are my goals and ambitions? That kind of thing. And sure. If you mean something else, like, what's the end goal God assigned me? What is the dictated purpose placed upon my shoulders? Then no, that kind of thing does not occur to me because that's, again, your religious idea. You think like that because one way or another you've been taught to. I'm aware that I'm a biological being and I will die. I'm aware that whatever point there is to anything that I ever do, it has an impact which is limited in space, just as you believe, and limited in time, at least until it becomes indistinguishable from the enormous background noise of historical cause at some point in the future. This is not troubling. This is the nature of being, well, a being. It's very troubling to those who've been misled to expect something else. But again, that's not me.
Some people get caught up in figuring out how the universe works, trying to prove things with science. Others dive into philosophy, psychology, or even that trusty search engine Google.
Okay, yes, people might do all of those things to try to reach answers about how things work. And indeed, I do think that how things work has an awful lot to do with why we're here, why defined in the sense that I prefer, which has absolutely nothing to do with lying in bed staring at the ceiling wondering, what's the point of all this? But it's interesting that you're treating this as somehow relevant to the question of why we're here, considering that you would define why entirely differently. So I am curious where this is going.
But here's the thing. No matter how much your mind tries to categorize everything into nice, neat little boxes, there's something inside of you, a longing, that can't be filled with mere answers.
I think what you're saying there is that people do take these answers to questions like, how does it work, and apply them to questions like, why are we here? Again, with why defined in the way that I would consider relevant, meaning essentially the same thing as how. By what process? But that this approach is emotionally inadequate in some way. You really want to be asking some other question and getting some other answer. People have some deep inner longing to go beyond mere answers, mere facts about reality. What that implies about the alternative, I suppose I'll leave up to you. Charitably, I suppose we could say that people don't just want to know the factual nature of reality, but they want someone to give them an assignment. They have a desire for life to be gamified by some external force. I think that's a reasonably fair assessment of what we're probably driving towards here.
And guess what? That's your heart trying to tell you there's more to life than what you can see or measure.
Okay, yeah, there are things that you can neither see visually nor measure, yes. Perhaps even things which can't be perceived at all and have no effect, which I assume refers to things like the will of God, God's intentions and wishes, and heaven and hell, none of which have any detectable effect, at least while you're alive. But going back to things that just can't be seen and measured, sure, there are those things. Some of them might be people's feelings, relationships, outcomes in the future, even beyond your lifespan. Of course, it's pretty uncommon for a person's life to be entirely defined by the relentless pursuit of knowledge, chasing answers to the exclusion of all else, and defining the importance of life relative to that and nothing else. Likewise, I would also say that it's a lot less common than you think for people to define their life entirely by the relentless pursuit of God to the exclusion of all else. And when you filter out both of those pursuits and look at what people are pursuing other than that, you're likely to find a lot of interests that are quite common to the human experience, regardless of our positions on questions of religion. And I think that if you look there, you'll find much more probable, broadly applicable answers to what people are generally focusing on and finding purpose and meaning in when they're not part of your religion. You seem to be proposing this dichotomy that either you find your purpose entirely in God, or you find your purpose entirely in answering scientific questions, which doesn't strike me as a very serious or productive approach.
That's something beyond the material world.
No, things that you can't see or measure are not therefore beyond the material world.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 states, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to the end."
Okay, well, using random quotations when you're trying to make a point is not useful at the best of times. It's why, despite the fact that it's an incredibly common practice when people want to sound smarter than they are, it's something you'll very rarely see me doing. But quoting Bible verses to an atheist is a whole other level of useless. The only function of this here is to fill time. Bringing it up will do nothing.
So what's that saying?
It could not matter less.
Your heart has eternity built into it. A sense that there's something greater out there, And no matter how much your mind tries to dismiss it, your heart knows.
Okay, I'd say that's you reading in a little bit, but doesn't matter. We'll roll with that interpretation. So basically the argument is, look, there's a verse in the Bible that says I'm right, and you really do believe the thing I say you believe. Okay, great. How wonderful for you. I'm sure you find that very convincing. What's that got to do with me? Again, go tell it to the people in the church. They'll lap this shit up with a grin.
It's like when you try to deny the fact that you ate the last slice of pizza, but you can't ignore the greasy evidence.
Deny it to who? To yourself? Okay, then wouldn't the analogy be more like a personal knowledge, maybe a twinge of the conscience about the fact that you know that you ate that piece of pizza? Why are we using externally verifiable evidence in the analogy? That would be relevant to someone else knowing that you ate the piece of pizza and therefore seeing through your denial, which you made to them. It's not like it's entirely inapplicable here or anything. It just seems like it kind of confuses the issue. I think you could have cut that part and not lost anything.
Your heart feels the divine presence, even if your mind's out there trying to rationalize it all away.
Okay, but see, just like I don't have this knowledge that you propose that I should have when I consider this question, I also don't have this feeling that you propose that I should have. I mean, surely if I have a feeling, I should at least feel the feeling, right? Otherwise, I don't have the feeling. Well, I don't feel the feeling. Now what? Oh, well, there's a Bible verse that says you actually do. We can go on forever like this. Do you see why I say this is not an interesting conversation? Why I called this tedious at the start?
Point number 2, the inner longing.
How is this not going to be the same thing as point number 1? You were talking about the inner longing the whole way through point number 1.
Let's talk about that gnawing feeling we all get sometimes, the sense that something is missing.
Okay, I will agree that it's a very broadly common human feeling. I don't know if it's universal, but, pretty typical of humans. That at times we're not happy with the state of our lives and we want to change something, achieve something different, rise to some new challenge, whatever it is. Something's missing and then we go pursuing it. Or we don't and we sit around and be sad. That happens too. Garbage option, don't recommend. But actually, if you're not happy with your life exactly as it is right now, you must secretly just want God, right? Couldn't be anything else. It's your answer or no answer.
You can have all the success, all the money, friends, Instagram followers in the world, but there's still this tiny hole, this yearning that no amount of distractions can fill.
Well, if you're incredibly stupid and shallow, maybe they will. If you're not, though, yeah, you might want more than just distractions all day, or indeed more than just the status quo, even if the status quo is really quite good. Humans do like novelty. We tend to get bored with how things are and want to shake things up. So a lot of the time we will have these sort of ups and downs, peaks and valleys in terms of general satisfaction. This is the attitude that led us to spreading across the world, that led us to inventing everything. It's one of the foundations of our success as a species. In other words, happiness and contentedness and satisfaction are kind of overrated. Sure, they're useful as an outcome. It's sort of a reward you're getting from your brain for getting to some point that you wanted to get to. But if those feelings never stopped, you'd never get anywhere. Dissatisfaction pushes you. If you're feeling that feeling, it should probably be taken as an indicator that you should change something. So ideally, you would learn to accept that feeling and use it for something. But of course, in this case, it's going to be a repetition of the one single answer these types always have, which is think about God more.
You know the drill. You buy the clothes, you go on vacation, you scroll endlessly through social media, and yet there's that feeling that something's still off.
Well, yeah, the closest thing there to doing anything interesting was the vacation. And depending what the vacation is, even that might not be. Yes, in many cases, humans stuck in an endless cycle of pointless consumerism and button poking are probably not going to be that satisfied forever. At some moments they might be, and at other moments they might want to do something different. And if they don't feel like they can, that might be quite discouraging. Question mark, question mark, question mark, therefore you believe in God.
And guess what? That's your heart reminding you that only God can fill that emptiness.
Yeah, see? But of course, that's not what your heart is actually saying. Your heart is saying, what I'm doing right now kind of sucks. What I've been doing for the past week kind of sucks. Maybe I should do something that doesn't suck so bad. Maybe I should do something cool. Achieve something. Be somebody. Get off my phone for 5 minutes. Just like most people, I of course deal with the feeling of dissatisfaction at times. And at literally no point do I have the thought or the feeling, you know what, actually I believe in God and I want to worship God all day and I want to do nothing with my life but worship God. That'll fix the problem that I've been sitting on my ass for the past 6 hours scrolling YouTube thumbnails without ever clicking on anything. I've also fixed this problem in the past for significant periods of time. Obviously not permanently, because permanent satisfaction is neither realistic nor especially optimal for humans, but I have fixed it for prolonged periods, and never was the solution muttering prayers in a church or whatever. It was figuring out what was causing the feeling of dissatisfaction in the first place, and then making changes that specifically address that issue, which again has never turned out to be a religious issue. You have this one-track mind. There's only one topic that ever comes to your head when anyone brings up the fact that they're not entirely happy with the state of things currently, and it makes you sound like you have essentially no connection to the realities of life.
Psalms chapter 42 verse 1 says,
"Oh, right, never mind. The Bible says that I just want to worship God more. Never mind."
"As the deer pants for streams of water, so my heart pants for you, my God. Your soul is thirsty for God, and trust me, your mind can't fill that thirst with facts. Only the Creator can."
Okay, again, this weird false dichotomy between the creator and facts. These are the only two directions you can take to remedy your general feeling of dissatisfaction from scrolling social media too much. There's literally no other option for some reason, and the facts option definitely can't work, okay? Why? Well, you heard him. Trust me, bro. Okay, why would I trust you, guy? You do not have a good track record.
So next time you catch yourself in a moment of emptiness, that's not just a sign that you need more pizza or a new Netflix series. That's your heart saying, hey, I'm made for something more than this.
I'm made for something more than this, of course, again, assumes a religious frame that I just don't share. But yeah, maybe. Maybe you're sitting around, you're bored with your life, you do nothing with your free time other than ordering pizzas and watching Netflix, and you think to yourself, I want more than this. I expected to achieve more than this. I can do more than this. What am I doing? Unfortunately, the very streamlined and convenient and intentionally addictive nature of a lot of modern entertainment and food and so on can be a big roadblock in the way of actually getting up and doing more. Maybe it can seem like an appealingly easy dopamine fix, setting up a shrine to Jesus in the corner of your living room. Maybe you'll find that more satisfying long term, and maybe you won't. If so, good for you. If not, well, you're human. It's just how it goes. Your feelings of satisfaction or lack thereof are about your interpretation of yourself, the relationship of yourself to reality, and to other people, and to your ideas about what's expected of you and what you expect of yourself and what you value, all of which you've picked up all over the place through your life. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution regardless of what this guy says. You know, this guy's got his one thing that he wants to sell you on, and nothing else is going to do it. This is the way. He's like a crypto bro for your emotions instead of your finances. If you try what he says and it doesn't work for you, don't feel like you've exhausted all of your options. You obviously haven't. And I guess that's all I got to say about that right now.
Point number 3, the beauty of creation. Okay, let's talk about sunsets, or the sound of the ocean, or the starry night that makes you feel so small, yet so incredibly alive.
Again, you already talked about this. You said at the start, you see a sunset and it's so beautiful, so you think it can't be an accident. And for some reason, therefore, it must be divine. We're treading the same ground repeatedly.
When was the last time you saw something in nature that just made you pause and say, wow, this is beyond me. This is bigger than what I can understand.
Saw, like literally saw with my eyes? Well, it's been a long time, I would have to say. I mean, I guess I don't fully appreciate like the scale of interstellar distances, for example, or the scale of the sun or something, but that's just an inability to fully comprehend big numbers. I don't think that's what you mean. I don't think you literally mean this has a large physical scale. Or maybe you do, I don't know. One of your examples was, after all, the starry night that makes you feel so small, but the other ones were a sunset and the sound of the ocean. I wouldn't say comprehending those are really an issue of scale. I don't know. Yeah, I see a lot of things that I look at and I go, wow, that's cool, or wow, that's big. Most of the time I have at least some understanding of it, sufficient to feel like it's not some grand mystery, but as I've learned, I'm not allowed to be satisfied with that.
Your mind might explain it scientifically. That's just the way the Earth's atmosphere reflects light, causing colours to shift. Or it's just the Earth's rotation in space. But your heart looks at the beauty of creation and says, this can't be an accident. There's purpose here.
Okay, no it doesn't. I've never had such a thought in my entire life. At least not that I remember. Who knows? Maybe I did when I was a tiny child and I assumed that everything around me functions essentially like me. But if I ever had that way of thinking, I was well past that by the time I remember anything. In any case, again, you're just repeating yourself. We've already been over this. Making the same bad argument twice doesn't make it a good argument.
Psalms chapter 19 verse 1 says,
All right, let's have another repetition of the argument that the Bible says that's what you think, therefore that's what you think.
The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands.
All right, never mind. It's not even that. This time it's just some guy says that he thinks certain things he looks at imply God. Well, I'm more than willing to accept that that's what he thinks. Congratulations to him.
That feeling you get when you see something beautiful, that's your heart recognizing God's handiwork, even if your mind is just saying, it's just physics, right?
Okay, so the argument is you find some stuff pretty, and that's your heart believing in God. Just 'cause. Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you conflate finding things nice with believing that God did it. What do you think? That's just going to be granted because you said so?
And here's the kicker. You could be the most scientific person, most logical person on the planet. But when you see that sunrise, when you hear the song that moves you to tears, there's something deep inside you that knows there's a creator behind all of this.
Behind the song, at least. Does this not feel familiar to you? Have you forgotten that we've already covered this?
Your heart feels it. Even your mind can't always explain it.
Explain what? Feelings? Yeah, okay, sure. Your mind can't immediately explain the root cause of feelings. I mean, you keep denigrating the idea of turning to scientific answers, but just like everything else, I'm not just going to accept that they're inadequate just because you said so. A lot of things you can't just instantly know the answer to. That's why people have to put in work to try to figure it out. That's the point of doing science at all. What are you expecting that I will expect? That I just know every answer to everything always, instantly, with no work? Why would anyone think that's reasonable?
Point number 4, the feeling of connection. Let's talk about relationships for a second. Ever met someone and instantly felt that connection, like you knew them before you ever even met them?
No, personally I don't think so. But I have heard about this feeling that you're talking about. I generally understand it on an intellectual level. I can accept that it happens. And once again, it's a feeling. I'm quite aware that there are feelings. This isn't news. And I've gone this far without leaping across the chasm from there are feelings to feelings imply God and everyone in the world who has feelings therefore believes in God. We're just going to do this again, and it's going to be as worthless as the first time. So why are we doing it? What are you hoping this will do? And what about that is different from the first several times you tried it?
You might chalk it up as chemistry or fate, or maybe you're just vibing with them. But deep down, something in your heart says, this isn't a coincidence. This is divine.
Why would I think that? Wow, I like this person. I really get along with this person. Therefore it's God. That's not an argument. That's not a reasonable conclusion, man. It's a complete non sequitur. It makes no sense. Your brain is fried. Get off the juice.
In 1 John chapter 4, 7-8.
Every point has to have a Bible verse. That's the pattern, isn't it? Just get it over with.
It says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God."
Well, that settles it then.
Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love.
Okay, so some people don't know God then. It just said the people who don't love don't know God. Or are you proposing that this is an example of what's called vacuous truth? For example, in a room with 500 people and no hats, you say every hat in this room is red. And it's true because there are 0 hats in the room, and therefore 0 non-red hats in the room. It's true that every hat in the room is red, and that every hat in the room is not. Is that what you're trying to say? That it's vacuously true that the people who don't love don't know God, but since everybody loves, everyone knows God, and so facts about the people who don't love are just vacuously true, and aren't actually true about any real person. Maybe that's what you mean.
There's a reason we crave connection. It's not just because we're social creatures, even though we are.
But it's not just that, because...
It's because at our core, we are made to reflect God's love.
I'm aware that you believe that. It's been abundantly clear the whole video what you believe. But you're not just here to tell me what you believe, are you? You're here to convince me to believe the thing that you believe, or to convince me that I already do. But you're not doing that. You don't appear to even be trying. It's like you're talking to yourself.
When you feel love, whether from a friend, a family member, or even a random act of kindness, your heart is connecting with the divine. That's not just some random feeling. That's God's love showing up in your life.
Well, I agree it's not just some random feeling, which is a phrasing that's very commonly used to try to run things down when anyone proposes that maybe they don't actually come from God. It's just this, it's just that, it's just some random crap. Yeah, but it's not just anything. It's a very important aspect of human life, and it's very important to humans. If there's no God for it to be important to, or no God for it to come from, that doesn't make it less important to humans. It's still the same thing it already was. The feelings of others towards me and me towards others aren't important to me because the Bible says so. They're not important to me because of their origin, through God or physical processes or anything else. They were important to me before I had any conception of any of that, because that's not what gives them their importance to a person. They're important because of their real impact in the lives and minds of people. I put a high value on that because it has a high value to humanity, whereas you put zero value on it. The value you might say you have for it is not for it in and of itself. It's for the God that you think caused it. Only. If anything, such as love, becomes separated from the God in your mind, it immediately becomes worthless trash. Well, I'm sorry, I don't share your attitude. There's no reason why our feelings should cease to matter to us or be seen as lesser if they weren't placed in us by God. This is another one of those misanthropic demands insisted upon by the religious for no other reason than that it's insisted upon by their religion.
And if you've ever had the deep connection with someone and thought, this is different, that's not just your mind's desire for companionship, that's your heart recognizing that at its core, we were created to love and be loved by God.
That makes no sense whatsoever. If I have a strong feeling towards another person, that's me recognizing that I was created not to love and be loved by other people, but to love and be loved by God. He sounds about as out of place in this exchange as a third wheel on a date night. You're saying this as if it's some sort of a logical conclusion from the mere fact that humans love each other. How? Do you have anything to make it seem like there's any reason to think that? Well, no, because now we're moving on to point number 5. So I guess that's all we're getting to try to establish this one's true.
Point number 5, the ultimate truth. So here's the thing. You might spend your whole life trying to ignore it, but deep down, your heart knows the truth. And that truth is that God exists.
Yeah, you might have mentioned it once or twice. Fucking hell.
Maybe your mind is still working through all the evidence, asking questions, looking for answers, but your heart knows.
There are 2 minutes left. This video is like 9 minutes long. It could have been 5 minutes easily. There's so much repetition here. And he has a script, or at least notes. He didn't read through that stuff once. Or if he did, he didn't realize he was reading the same thing over and over.
In Romans 1, chapter 19 to 20.
Verse 19 through 20. 1 is the chapter. And we just couldn't get through the video without it, could we? I guess we all knew this one was coming eventually. Pretty much inevitable. We've all heard this before, most likely. It's in like every second video I do. I'm skipping it this time. What an absolute waste of my time.
So that the people are without excuse. You see, your heart has been in on this divine truth since day one.
You see? No, I don't see. I'm an atheist, guy. I'm not just gonna suddenly assume it's true because you read out of the Bible. Paul's letter saying that everyone already believes the thing he believes isn't gonna convince me that I do. Obviously. Take it to church. They'll think you're a genius for this stuff. Whoa, no way. He found Romans 1, 19 through 20? How could anyone come up with such genius level shit? Those people's brains have been microwaved by this stuff. They'll think this is the hot new thing. Why are you putting this in front of atheists?
God's fingerprints are all over this world, and no amount of intellectual debate can remove that feeling that you get when you experience something beyond yourself.
Whoa, that something happened that's weird or hard to explain or like has a large physical size. And I feel some kind of way about that. Oh, therefore God. You know, some people will bring up these verses and at least say, well, this is pointing to a teleological argument, a cosmological argument, some kind of argument. You're saying no. All this means is that when something happens, you have feelings. And if you have feelings, it must be God. I mean, Romans 1, 19 through 20 is hilariously impotent at the best of times, but you've straight up castrated it.
Your minds can debate, question, and analyze. Your heart has been telling you the truth all along. And that truth is that God exists.
You might have mentioned it once or twice.
So to close.
Oh, thank you.
So next time you feel that pull, that unexplainable feeling deep inside,
Unexplainable feeling. Yeah, I still have only a dim idea of what you're even talking about. Like, I think I kind of understand the kind of thing you're maybe trying to express, but even so, this means pretty close to nothing to me. Unless you're just talking about connections with people, or just being impressed by stuff. I feel those, but those are pretty mundane emotions. I think you're once again referring to something else, in which case this means nothing to me.
don't just dismiss it, don't ignore it.
Okay, I'll be sure not to do that. I'll make a note of it. Don't hold your breath, though.
Your heart knows what your mind might be trying to deny. You were made with eternity in your heart. If this resonates with you, then please share it with someone who might need to hear it.
Oh, this video resonated with me enormously. I'm sharing it with several people right now because it's so incredible. Life-changing, really. I'm sure I'll never be the same once I forget this in a day.
And remember, the next time that you feel that longing or see something beautiful, know this.
Wait, if I feel the longing, which is the mystery feeling that I don't feel, I think, or if I just happen to see something beautiful, regardless of what emotion I have in response, what are you trying to broaden out the net? Come on, have some confidence. Everybody has the longing. Stick with that. It's totally universal. You shouldn't need to water down your criteria.
Your heart knows God exists, even when your mind tries to deny it.
Yeah, might have mentioned that once or twice. I don't think I've ever seen someone who needed a script editor this badly for a video this short. You know, either that or he's intentionally doing this. He's doing that irritating thing they do where they repeat the same thing over and over and over until eventually complete morons think it must be true because they've heard it a lot. That could actually be the strategy here.
Anyway, I hope that spoke to you.
Yeah. Alright, from this point on, it's just his outro, so thank you for watching. If you would, please like and subscribe. Huge thanks to all of my supporters on every platform. They're what keep the special feelings flowing here, and I'll see you next time.